find a mentor and why they need one. Bobby, how are you doing today?
Doing great. I'm excited to talk about this topic. I think you know so many students feel lost in college, and having a mentor during the experience of college, I think is so important. Probably right now more than ever.
Well, let me talk a little bit about why we're talking about these subjects. So, as you know, I'm a Gallup certified strengths coach, and Gallup does a lot of research around just people's well being, their engagement with their
Mhm.
work. And one of the studies that they did a few years back is called the Gallup Purdue study. And
Mhm.
within it, they found that there are 6 key indicators that if a college student does this while they're in college, it's actually a big predictor about how engaged they are in their work, how they're doing as far as having a life of well-being. And this is including things like their health, their I can't say the word spiritual,
Mhm.
let me just say their
Mhm.
spiritual life,
Right.
how they get along with their family. It's just really this whole concept around just being a good person and
Mhm.
feeling healthy and alive and enjoying your life. So it's really pretty interesting that the things that you can do in college can actually influence that.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's great. And last week we talked about the first piece of that saying. So now we're looking at each of the pieces individually, and absolutely, I think it's people tend to kind of think work is like separate from work and career or separate from all your personal stuff in your life. But those of us who've been around a while know that it all ties together. And so if you're stressed in one area of your life, you're going to be stressed everywhere. If you don't have a good balance, you're not there. And so that's where having someone who has a little more experience than you that can give you a little bit of advice can give you such a leg up.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So the whole
Yeah.
idea of, how do you help your college student find a mentor? And I think what I really like about this series of topics we're talking about, Bobby, is parents, a lot of times you're like, how can I help my child really get through this college experience?
Hmm.
And I think this is one of the ways that you could talk to them and say, hey, it's really important that, and have some ideas around, this idea of having a mentor, talking to your college professor, and all these other
Hmm.
topics that we'll be speaking to surrounding this Gallup Purdue study. So, it kind of gives us a little bit of control over trying to help
Hmm.
our kids, which doesn't always seem like we have when they leave the house. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, as far as helping your college student find a mentor, let's talk a little bit about that piece of it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, so isn't I mean like to me like finding a mentor would seem like sounds like finding someone who is already in a career in the career that you want. So that's kind of like what we've talked about before. What you help students do, figure out what your strengths are, and you find a career that you might be interested in, right? And then go and find someone in that career. But I think also there are, certainly professors who can be mentors if you're in the business school, who can, and you want to be in business, a mentor professor could help you get connected up with people, but also just older students. I mean, there's lots of people. It doesn't necessarily have to be career related, but I think both ways are things to look for. And I think a lot of students, it would not occur to them to look for someone who's maybe already out of college and in a career. Uh, it may be embarrassing, the idea of calling up and saying, hey, would you, officially or unofficially be willing to mentor me? It may feel embarrassing, but I suspect that a lot of people in business would be really honored and excited to try to do that.
Yeah, so let's back this up a little bit. You brought up
Yeah.
a ton of really cool stuff in there.
Right.
I hear this all the time, and as you know, I help students figure out a career path hopefully before they go to college, so that
Yeah.
when they get there, they can have some of these meaningful
Hmm.
conversations with their professors, with other people that have done this. And there's a big tie to that, Bobby, as far as this Gallup Purdue study that it's when you're seeking out these mentors, that it's meaningful in that they're speaking to something that you're interested in. So it's not just, right? It's not just,
Right.
let me find somebody that can help me X. It's you have a specific purpose for it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So if you just randomly selected some person in business that was somebody you're not interested in, or just a random professor, a random older student, yeah, if they're not doing something that engages your interest, then yeah, the mentorship would be valuable only in, minor ways. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love your idea of talking to older students, because anybody that has been there, done that,
Mhm.
can help steer you in the right direction and keep you from making maybe mistakes that derail you. Or, I look at it too and say, you are 17, 18, 19 years old, and you may have picked this career path or this major, and somebody that's been there, done that might be able to give you a little bit more reality as to what things are truly like. And it could change your mind or help you adjust and maybe focus your career a little bit differently than what you thought it was going to look like walking into it.
Oh, I mean, the importance of that, I mean, you just can't overstate it. At least for me, when I was in college, I absolutely, and I think so many people are like this, like you're both completely like if you haven't figured out stuff about careers or strengths, then you're lost as to what major you should be in and
Yeah.
what career you should pursue. I changed my major 3 times. Uh, and also was never in the major that I should have been based on my strengths. And so, first thing, if I'd known that, I would have been less lost. But on the flip side, not only was I totally lost, I also thought I knew everything about everything.
Oh,
And
of course.
so,
Yeah.
right. And
Yeah.
so I wouldn't even, it didn't even occur to me to go get help. And both in undergraduate and law school and throughout, there are so many things that I discovered after the fact that I could have literally asked a couple of questions of an older student or someone in business. I could have figured out, okay, I shouldn't take this class. I shouldn't take this professor. Oh, there's this really easy way to get through this class. All of these things. There's a cat walking past me. And so, but also I would have been able to figure out that I wouldn't enjoy the career I was going into. And even more importantly, oh my gosh, let me get rid of this guy. Even more importantly, I wouldn't have gone probably and spent 2 years in a career that I didn't enjoy.
I think that part's
Absolutely.
huge. Yeah,
Yeah,
Bobby, I think it's huge, because how much time are we wasting doing something that's just not right for us, or that we could have made a minor adjustment and made it that much better?
absolutely. And when I think back, like if somebody had said to me, oh, you should go find a mentor, I probably would have been resistant because I thought I knew everything. But there's probably a way, and that's what this should be about to some extent, is how do you talk to your student and convince them, oh, this is something that you would be interested in? I think it probably has to do with the fact that they know their strengths and that they know which career they want, because then you can start talking about careers and people who can help you with that. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, but I want to reiterate it a little bit, and I'm going to tell you a story.
Yeah.
So
Because,
when
yeah, this
I'm
is what you can really speak to.
Right. When I'm coaching my students, whether it be a group class or one-on-one, part of that process is they have to talk to somebody that knows more about that subject than they do. And when I do, and so that's a wide gambit, right? That might be somebody that's been a pilot for 30 years and knows the ins and outs of that industry, or they might, have gotten into it 2 years ago, or they might be studying in school, whatever those things are. And it's so funny, because when I get to that point, what I've learned over time is I get mom and dad engaged right away during that time period,
Mhm.
because it's hard for kids to go out and handshake and, ask questions. Number one, an adult, and number two, somebody that's done this for a long time. So that's intimidating. But every time they do it, oh my gosh, Bobby, they come back and they're like, oh my God, that was so cool. And
Yeah,
listen to
I met all these interesting people.
Yeah. And to your point earlier, people that are getting asked to talk with these students love it, because they get to talk about something they enjoy doing and that they've done for 30 years and share their knowledge. So if we can just get them to take that first step,
Mhm.
then they fall in love with it. But it's intimidating. It's hard.
Absolutely, yeah, and I mean, of course, that's the old, how to win friends and influence people. People love talking about themselves. That's the only thing people love talking about, right? So, and I think you made a good point, which is you just need to get the students to go there
Mhm.
and talk to the people. Get them in the room with the people who have the experience. And so, yeah, I mean, and I guess there's lots of ideas about that, but like, you know, if for instance, you know, when I was thinking about when I was majoring in accounting and I was thinking about going and working for an accounting firm, I never went and found recent graduates who were working at accounting firms, and I could have gone and talked to them. I could have probably gone to some young accountant happy hour or something for people in the city and talked to them. And if I had done that, I would have learned so much more, you know.
It would have. And so here's another idea, and it kind of knocks off two birds with one stone. It could be a reason to go and talk to your professor.
Yes.
You have a very specific reason to say, hey, do you know of anybody like that took this class 2 years ago that I might be able to speak to that is pursuing this as a career? I mean, that'd be a great way to engage with your professor, let them know that you're serious about it, and then also find somebody that maybe isn't as intimidating. You know, they're just a couple years older than you are versus trying to go out and, you know, right out the gate, try to talk to somebody that's been doing it for 30 years.
Oh, absolutely. And then that ties into what we were talking about last week, engagement with professors and things like that, which is like, if you go to your professor and say, hey, I'm looking for a mentor, everything in your dynamic with that professor is going to change. That professor is going to know, okay, you're serious about this major, you are engaged, you are coming to me and asking questions, you want to know things. I guarantee when that professor either is, you know, grading at your paper or thinking about who they're going to recommend to whoever it is for that internship or that whatever it is, they're going to think positively of you. And so it's literally just the act of those simple things of going and asking questions. But here now, last week we were just like, go engage with your professors. This week it's like, okay, here's a thing you can go engage about. Say, hey, I want to go find some young people in work. I want to go find a recent graduate that you think would relate to me and connect up with that person. And so maybe that's the thing, is if you say, you know, maybe students might not like the idea of the word mentor, excuse me, but say, go see if you can find someone who's a recent graduate who you might be friends with or something like that. Right?
Yeah. And, you know, one of the things that I ask parents to do is to help their kid figure this out, find somebody that they can talk to, is look at their LinkedIn, you know, profile and see if they know anybody in that industry that they truly know, you know, and have that warm lead. But as far as the, you know, truly getting that student to reach out and make that happen, it's really figuring out how they're built and how would they best accept that information, you know. And as you, again, you know, I love Clifton Strengths, but if you know your kiddo, you know, for somebody that's, you know, very intellectual, you know, it might be piquing that interest in them. For somebody that likes to get stuff done and has lists, you know, making sure they have a list, you know, and using those tricks to get them to make the action, to make it happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. I have, you know, over the years, I've had a number of college students connect with me on LinkedIn, which is something that never even occurred to me. The college students, you might as well go ahead and make your LinkedIn profile, because you're going to be using it once you know, are in business, but having it while you're in school makes sense, right? That's also kind of, you know, it's one of those, just a funny side thing, but your LinkedIn profiles ask you to name your strengths and have other people even comment on and verify that you have strengths. Like, that's a good way just to get started thinking about strengths, you know?
Yeah.
So that's neat.
And too, if you have a LinkedIn profile, you could start the process that's a little bit more comfortable for kids, which is reaching out to them on LinkedIn saying, I'm a college student, I'm thinking about making this my career. Would you give me some insights? And if somebody's reaching back out to you, you know that they're interested. So it kind of that a little bit. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, the idea of finding, you know, okay, here's a company that I find really interesting. Find somebody who's just a few years older than you at that company, you know, maybe, and go just say, hey, can I hear about what it's like? You know, yeah, I think that, I mean, I think the main thing is just literally, like, certainly, like, I might have been resistant to this idea, but I bet, like, I would have initially been resistant, then I probably would have done it, if that makes sense. You know, that typical, oh, that sounds silly, and then I'd think about it and I'd do it. A lot of this is just, if somebody had just told me that this is a good idea,
And I can
And
tell you, I would
so,
have been hugely resistant. I know I would
yep.
have been. But if I knew what the purpose was, I think
Hmm.
that's a different conversation. I remember the day that I was standing on campus,
Hmm.
and I might have told you this story before, but I was an art major. And I got to
Hmm.
tell you, I kind of chuckle when I say that. But at the end of the day, it was something I was hugely interested in.
Hmm.
And I remember looking at back then we had the Book of Majors, which I know totally
Yeah.
dates.
Oh yeah. I remember
I was
that.
looking through all the classes that I could take, and one of the classes was interior design.
Uh-huh.
And in my head, I was thinking fluffy, I'm going to go in and design somebody's home.
Right.
I remember going, what idiot's going to take that class? And then my time just stood still. I remember it just was like this moment in time that I was like, nothing moved for like a minute. And if I would have just stopped,
Uh-huh.
went and talked to my advisor or somebody in the art school, they probably would have said, yeah, but Kristen, you're not thinking completely about this.
Uh-huh.
You can design interior spaces for office buildings or this or
Right.
that, which would have been a lot more purposeful for me and probably would have hit home.
Right. But
And
you thought, oh, this is just a one-on-one, one house kind of thing. Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
that's funny. And so, yeah, like you simply needed to go ask the question. And then you would have been like, oh, this is something I would be super interested in.
yeah,
Yeah. And that's all it is. And so I think, the answer to this question is how to help your college student find a mentor is just talk to them about this and tell them a couple of these ideas. And then let them be the one to go try it out. All you need to do is talk to older students, talk to professors, and just start asking around for a mentor. If you ask, somebody's going to point you in the direction, if that makes sense.
oh my gosh, they so will.
Yeah.
And I can't emphasize enough, if somebody came to me and said, hey, Kristen, could you tell me what it's like to be a coach or run marketing departments or do,
Mhm.
some of the things I'm interested in, I'd be like, oh, sure. Let's go. Let's talk for a little while. Yeah. So
Oh, for
it
sure. And I have other tutors who, younger tutors sometimes message me and say, hey, will you talk to me about, how got to where you are in tutoring or whatever. And man, I generally get on the phone and talk their ear off until they're ready
fun.
for me to
Yeah.
stop. I'm always happy to talk about this stuff,
Yeah.
so that's it. And I think it's just so valuable. And I'm really excited that you found this study. I mean, the Gallup strengths, when I went through it, just really helped me realize, gosh, I wish I'd known this so much before, but so much earlier. But it also kind of confirmed that I found the career that suits me the best, right? As opposed
Yeah.
to, oh, this career just seems to be working well. No, it's because my strengths directly lie there. And so, Gallup is doing the kind of research that really, really will help students so much. And that's awesome.
Yeah. All right, Bobby. I think that we're
All right.
good. Thanks for joining me today.
Absolutely. And next week, we will continue on the list of talking about these different things that Gallup research shows really, really help students while they're in college and be successful in careers. So I'm really excited about that.